Of course, the only thing worth eating at Red Lobster is not gluten-free. Today we change that. We are gonna make their version of their Cheddar Bay biscuits in an easy recipe based off my gluten-free scones that has that same buttery topping, same cheesy, flaky center. You are going to love this recipe. Let's get started. So we're gonna start with the dry ingredients. We need 2 cups of gluten-free flour, which is 328 grams. I highly recommend using cup for cup gluten-free flour. It has cornstarch in the mix, so it makes a softer crumb, especially in baked goods like breads and biscuits. And then for the rest of your dry ingredients, I have a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of garlic powder, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. And then I'm just gonna use my pastry blender, or you could use a whisk, and just kind of mix that all together. In the dry ingredients as well, I forgot to mention this, is a teaspoon of sugar. Then to this, we're adding 3 tablespoons of chilled and chopped butter. And yes, 3 tablespoons is not a lot of butter for a biscuit recipe, but I will tell you why. We need to do things a little bit differently since these are gluten-free. So if you don't have a pastry blender, using a fork will work here as well, or sometimes I just use my hands too, and you can kind of knead the butter into the flour. You just want everything nice and uniform, so it'll be like a dry, sandy mixture. So a traditional biscuit recipe is basically butter, the flour, and the milk. We can't do that with gluten-free flour because if you add that much butter, it has a hard time soaking into that gluten-free starches. The fat doesn't adhere to the butter and it'll kind of seep out and leave an overly greasy biscuit. The liquids also, on the other hand, have a hard time absorbing in the flour, which is why sometimes you get that gummy texture. So our workaround is using less butter, but to build up the structure and to add more fat, I'm using 3/4 cup of whole milk yogurt. I've also used sour cream in here interchangeably, and that works as well. Then I have 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm just using vegetable oil, but you could use any type of oil you'd like. This also adds fat to the recipe, but it coats the gluten-free starches so it's not gritty. The butter is in its solid form, so it doesn't coat the starches as well, so the oil is what counteracts that. We have 1 egg, which just helps with binding, and then 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. This kind of replicates that buttermilk taste, but honestly, if I'm too lazy to squeeze some lemon juice, I've also used the same amount of vinegar, works too. All right, once that mixture is nice and smooth, we're ready to combine everything together. To the flour mixture, I have 1 cup of freshly grated sharp cheddar cheese. I like using sharp cheddar cheese versus mild because I feel like the cheese taste gets a little lost when you use mild cheddar. And then here's our yogurt oil mixture. And now here's something else. This isn't in the original cheese scones recipe, but I wanted kind of a looser texture to replicate those Cheddar Bay biscuits. So I'm adding a 1/2 cup of milk here. But I will say, depending on your gluten-free flour, cup for cup flour has cornstarch in it, so it kind of needs a little bit more liquid. The dough is still going to be pretty stiff at this point. Don't be tempted to add more liquid because what happens is if you adjust the liquid to make the dough better, then that's what ends up with the gummy texture. You need the right balance of dried, wet ingredients. Just make sure all the flour is worked in. Sometimes at this point, I kind of use my hands and knead the flour in as well. Once that is all combined, here's the other trick we're gonna do. We're going to cover the dough, put it in the fridge for 30 minutes, and this just gives time for all that moisture to soak up in the gluten-free flour so we don't get a dry biscuit, we don't get a crumbly biscuit, we don't get biscuits that are gritty or ricey. We have a nice soft texture. So chill this for 30 minutes, and while that's chilling, you can preheat your oven to 425. Once they've chilled, then I use a large sugar scoop. This is like 1/4 of a cup size. If you don't have this, you can also grease 1/4 of a cup measuring cup to portion out the dough. You just scoop it up and then plop it on your baking sheet lined with parchment paper. Don't worry about the placement right now when you're scooping it out. We can adjust it in a bit, but I also want to show you, I have 2 baking sheets stacked inside of each other. I do this because we are baking the biscuits at a higher oven, 425, so it just protects the bottoms from not becoming overly brown while the tops cook. So it's just like another layer of insulation for them. So once I have everything divided out, I kind of move these around. You don't have to worry about them being so close together. I actually like them a little closer together because it traps the steam inside to make them more tender. So you can kind of move them all, position them towards the middle. All right, and then we're gonna put these in the oven for about 17 minutes. Halfway through baking, I recommend rotating the baking pan so they bake evenly. And then when they come out, then we're gonna brush on the essential buttery topping. Our glorious cheese biscuits are out of the oven, so I'm gonna put together the butter topping. So I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and to that I'm using unsalted butter, so I'm going to add a pinch of salt, and then I have about a tablespoon of minced fresh parsley, but I've also used dried as well. If you use dried, then you would want to do about a teaspoon. And then just combine that together. And the best moment, brushing that over the top. Oh boy, is this a great version of cheddar biscuits. So my original recipe is for cheddar cheese scones or cheddar cheese biscuit, and this is just a little twist on it with the warm, melted, salty butter and cheese throughout. Oh my gosh. If you love garlic, you could also do some minced garlic on top too, or you could add some more garlic powder to the topping. Fresh garlic inside, you could do an herb biscuit. There are so many great ideas you could do with this recipe. You could find the full printable recipe link below, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.